Warren, it's great to see you.
Great to be here.
It is so great to have you in studio, my friend. Big fan of your work, and so much I want to talk to you about. And let's start with Lamar Jackson. I love Lamar Jackson. I think the world of him. I'm kind of obsessed with his abilities. He has been absolutely positively terrific, Warren, in the first couple of games of the season. Do you think he keeps up this stellar play?
I think he can. Look, a lot of people don't realize the context of the difficult situation that he was in last season and the things that he overcame in order to produce those solid numbers. This season already he set 2 records, right? His week 1 game, no other quarterback had passed for that accuracy and that level of completion rate and that level of pass rating. And in his second game, no quarterback had ever run for the yardage he's done. I definitely think that he's in a perfect situation because the Ravens are going to be crafting this offense to emphasize his strengths. And for that specific reason, and more teams need to do that, by the way, but for that reason, I absolutely think that the sky's the limit for him. And I think we're seeing just the beginning of what he's going to bring.
I think you nailed it. And talking to Lamar on my radio show a few weeks ago, you talk about, play design and you talk about catering to someone's strengths. I mean, the hiring and the appointment of Greg Roman, gigantic for the Baltimore Ravens.
Absolutely. I think more teams need to be willing to structure their offense to support the most important position, which is the quarterback. Far too often they're taking a player and trying to fit him into something. The Ravens took the opposite approach, overhauled their entire offense around this quarterback. You saw that even when he came in the game last year and started as a starter, they replaced both of their running backs. The guys who were running backs with Joe Flacco went to the curb.
Great point.
They brought in new running backs. That was mid-season. They started to adjust already. Now they had the full off-season to work everything in. I think it's just so exciting now that they've got Marquise Brown. They can go deep. They've got the tight ends to work off of play action. Is really exciting.
Great organization, great continuity. You're seeing that with the preparation and the approach with Lamar Jackson, and I love him. Mitch Trubisky has struggled mightily. Do you see something in the cadence, the play selection that says maybe Matt Nagy and the coaching staff has lost a little confidence in him?
Yeah, I don't understand it because we're in an era where passing is far more efficient than rushing. I think everybody pretty much knows that. The numbers are crystal clear that it's more efficient to pass the football. Yet last week against the Denver Broncos, when they were on the plus side of the 50-yard line trying to score a touchdown, Matt Nagy called 18 plays, and 15 of those plays were runs, so that Mitchell Trubisky did not have to throw the football. That only speaks to the fact that there's a lack of confidence in his decision-making near scoring position, that they don't want to jeopardize the ability to potentially get 3 points or a touchdown with him making a mistake, and they'd rather, even though it's more efficient, run the football.
Makes absolutely no sense, in my opinion, what they're doing with Trubisky. Great breakdown of that. The Miami Dolphins, they're tearing it down to build it back up. I am a huge believer in the Dolphins' plan. Are you?
I am, because no team has tried this strategy where they've taken it all the way down to the foundation. We see so many of these partial rebuilds nowadays where it takes a team that was a 5-11 team and brings them up to a 7-9 team, and their ceiling is capped with like a wild card berth in a couple of years.
Right.
What we need to see for the Dolphins, they're going in the all-in strategy. We want to eventually become a Super Bowl contender. In order to do that, they realize the types of talent they need to get, and it's only going to be at the tops of the next couple of drafts, and they want to make sure that they're having enough shots at those players, because we know even if you have high draft picks, look at where Patrick Mahomes was drafted, and we just talked about Mitchell Trubisky and other quarterbacks drafted ahead of him. Even if you have high shots at the draft, you're going to still miss. So the more chances you have to take a player there, the more likely you're going to get those players that will be franchise-winning players.
Absolutely. Strength in numbers. I love the approach. I think the worst place to be in the NFL is stuck in the middle, wild card team. I joked before, clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with Ryan Tannehill. I give the Miami Dolphins a ton of credit. If the Steelers have a current plan, I don't know what it is. And I like Minkah Fitzpatrick a lot, Warren, as a player, but Ben Roethlisberger is done for the year, and I like Mason Rudolph more than most, but this is a tough spot, I think, right now, week number 3. It kind of just feels like desperation. I disagree completely with what Pittsburgh did. What's your opinion?
I think that's the perfect word for it, actually, desperation, because that's exactly what it looks like. This defense, forget Ben Roethlisberger for a second, this defense has been gutted through the air for several weeks, and the defense is Mike Tomlin's baby, right? That's where his side of the football, and it has not looked good. And so I feel like even though the GM, Kevin Colbert's the one ultimately making this move, probably got Mike Tomlin on the phone and asked him, what do you think? Them bringing in a player to help their defense from hemorrhaging points is going to help their defense look a little bit better. But is that in the best long-term interests of this team that is going to have to at some point move on from Ben Roethlisberger? Ben did not look good earlier this season. And there's been points in the last couple of years where he's been hit or miss. And is he 1 year removed from this surgery that he's going to have to get, going to be better and going to help you win games in the AFC North against Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield? I'm not so sure. I would rather have that potentially a top 10 draft pick with a bad defense and Mason Rudolph going through struggles that any quarterback would the first time, and wind up with maybe a top 10 draft pick where I can select the quarterback for the future, because like you, even if I like Mason Rudolph, I'm not convinced he's a franchise quarterback.
No, he's a third-round pick. Yeah. And if you have an opportunity, I mean, Roethlisberger is getting older. Roethlisberger has had some warts in the last few years. They don't have a ton of strength at the skill positions right now. I mean, to me, this was easy and a wasted opportunity. And I disagree with Pittsburgh and what they're doing completely, Warren. What do you see when you study the Rams on offense in the first 2 weeks of the season?
I haven't seen the same type of punch that we saw last season. You know, they have Cooper Kupp back, and that's a massive get because the offense completely fell apart without him last year, and they tried to run the same amount of 11 personnel with their 3 wides, but without Cooper Kupp on the field, they should have switched to more 12 personnel, added the 2 tight ends and just 2 wide receivers out there. Cooper Kupp is back, but Todd Gurley still doesn't look quite the same as what he was pre-injury, and that punch is not there just across the board. I'm hopeful, if I'm looking optimistically, that this is sort of like a lull from the Super Bowl hangover, and it will eventually wear off, and we'll see this team get into a better rhythm. But so far, it really, they did win against the Saints, but that really was a slower victory. It should have been a lot more decisive, especially their first home game since the NFC divisional round where they played the Dallas Cowboys. They played their last 3 games on the road in the NFC Championship game, the Super Bowl, and then Week 1 in Carolina. I thought we were going to get a better effort in the first half of that game. We didn't see it.
I was surprised. I was disappointed as well. All right, let's have a little fun finally. The Jets are getting 23 points in New England on Sunday. The Dolphins are getting 21.5 in Dallas, which is crazy. It's almost unprecedented for these two spreads, especially week 3 of a season. What would the number have to be for you to take the underdog?
Well, I would be more inclined to do so with the Jets because I think we don't know what Falk really is yet.
Okay.
And I think we have a better understanding of what Miami's bringing to the table. I think that the whole system in New York is still this proud system that is frustrated but proud, whereas I think the Miami system, those guys know the writing's on the wall. Look, last week's game, yes, New England was able to win 43-0 and eclipse that 40-point threshold, but it wasn't a blowout early in that game.
Right.
It was fairly close for a little while until they got some defensive scores and then kind of just snowballed. I don't know how much higher these lines can get, to be frank. I would almost be inclined to look to the Jets at the current number.
Interesting.
But
okay.
I probably wouldn't do that, but it wouldn't have to get much higher for me to say, look, this is just a little too ridiculous, and I'm going to go for it. Miami, I'd have to see a little bit more there, but it is the Dallas Cowboys, and the Dallas Cowboys will eventually turn to the ground game and run out the clock a little bit more than New England might do. New England, I also think their defense is a lot better, those defensive scores off takeaways, whereas I'm not so sure we'll see that as much with the Dallas Cowboys to help cover that line.
Fascinating times right now in the National Football League. Warren, this was a ton of fun. Let's do it again real soon.